When you're thinking about adding an Undercounter ice maker to a kitchen, a bar, or even a small office, the biggest question is usually, will it actually fit into my workflow without becoming a headache? I get that hesitation a lot. The promise of endless ice sounds great, but the reality can be a lot messier if you end up with a machine that's hard to install, drains power, or just sits there making ice you never use. Today, I'm going to walk through the Manitowoc UYF0240A 161B NEO Undercounter model. Look at what you'll see once it's in place, and help you decide whether its price point and feature set line up with your real-world needs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the space you'll need. This unit is designed to sit under a standard countertop, roughly the size of a dishwasher drawer. If you've already got a built-in fridge or a tall cabinet, you'll need at least 24 inches of width and 34 inches of height clearance, plus a little room behind for the water line. That's not a huge footprint, but it does mean you have to plan the plumbing early. You can't just drop it on the floor and plug it in. The NEO uses a standard 110-volt plug, which most commercial kitchens have, but the power draw spikes when the machine hits its peak production, so make sure the circuit can handle a few extra amps. The first practical strength you'll notice is the ice bin. Manitowoc gives this model a fairly spacious bin, about 14 pounds of ice before you need to empty it. In a home setting, that translates to a few hours of cocktails, a day of hosting a brunch, or enough ice for a small catering job. The bin slides out on a low-friction track, so you don't have to bend over to dump it, which is a small but meaningful ergonomic win for anyone who's spent time with a top-loading bin that sticks. Production is where the NEO badge really tries to sell itself. The spec sheet claims up to 28 pounds of ice per day, and in practice that means you can reliably count on a few hundred cubes every 24-hour cycle, even if you run the machine continuously. For a busy bar that needs a constant stream of ice for drinks, that output is solid. You won't be watching the bin fill up and then run out before the next shift. In a home kitchen, however, the daily output might be overkill. If you're only making a few drinks on weekends, you'll be sitting on a surplus of ice that will melt and refreeze, which can waste energy. Speaking of energy, the NEO includes a delay function that puts the unit in a low-power standby mode after a set period of inactivity. That feature is useful if you know your ice needs are cyclical, for example, a restaurant that only serves cold beverages during dinner service. You can program it to shut off after midnight and wake up again in the early evening. In a household where the machine runs 24/7, you'll see less of a bill impact, but the delay still cuts a few watts when the bin is full and you're not actively pulling ice. Now, let's get into the day-to-day experience. The first thing you'll hear when the machine starts is a low hum and a subtle churning as water fills the molds. Manitowoc uses a clear ice technology that shapes the cubes into a neat, rectangular form, the kind you see in upscale restaurants. The ice is dense enough to melt slower than the softer, cloudy cubes from a typical countertop freezer, which is great for keeping drinks chilled without watering them down too quickly. You'll also appreciate the built-in water filtration that reduces mineral buildup, meaning fewer clogs in the long run. Maintenance, however, is where the trade-offs become more apparent. The unit requires a monthly cleaning cycle that involves a rinse of the water reservoir and a brief soak of the ice molds in a mild sanitizer. If you skip this step, you'll start to notice a faint metallic taste in the ice, and the production rate can dip. The cleaning process isn't overly complicated, but you do need to pull the unit out from under the counter, which can be a hassle if you haven't left enough clearance for removal. Also, the waterline connection uses a standard inch compression fitting. If you're not comfortable tightening it yourself, you might need a plumber for the initial install. Another hidden consideration is noise. The NEO isn't the quietest machine on the market. When it's cycling through a production run, you'll hear a consistent low pitch that can be audible across an open kitchen. In a restaurant setting with other background noise, it blends in, but in a quiet home bar or a small office break room, the sound may be noticeable. It's not a scream, but it's there. So who should really consider this Manitowoc model? If you run a small to medium food service operation, think a coffee